Doug Franklin back with you for the teacher prep video number 2, Invite Them In. This is the second lesson in the Outcast series of Disciple Now. And I just want to review with you sort of the large group talk for a minute just to show you how it kind of bleeds in to this small group discussion that we're about to have. In the large group, it was the story of the woman at the well, and there was a couple of points inside of the talk that I think are really important. I love the first one, embrace the awkward. It must have been so awkward when Jesus was talking with this woman at the well. Samaritans and Jews never talked. Men and women never talked. It must have been a little bit odd. I mean, the woman was even surprised when Jesus reached out. And I think there's a real truth here for us, is that anytime we reach out to outsiders, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to seem like, why are you talking to me? Why are you even reaching out to me? We're not even supposed to be friends, or we're not even supposed to be acquaintances. What's going on? Jesus crosses over those lines. And I think it's really important for us to understand that if we're going to do this, if we're going to cross over lines, it's going to be weird and it's going to be a little awkward. And again, talk with your students about this. What's awkward about it? What does this awkwardness look like? How do you get beyond the awkwardness? How do you embrace the awkwardness? I think some of your students will be like, oh, this is cool. But there'll probably be some of your students that'll be like, I don't know if I can do this. And you can really encourage them and really help them understand how important it is to just embrace it, to just understand that God's in it and God is with them. The second thing that we talked about in the large group talk was look beyond. Jesus looks beyond the fact that she is Samaritan. He looks beyond the fact that she's a woman. He even looks beyond the fact that she is a sinner. He looks beyond it all. And he says, I have something that I could give you that could transform and change your life. How about us? When we see people different than us, how do we look beyond the outside? How do we look beyond the color of their skin or their gender or the big sign that they're holding up or the place that they're living? How do we look beyond it? Well, we look to the heart. And this is one of the things that I think we've got to challenge our students with is don't look at the outside, look at the inside. I think back about when young David was anointed king, God said, I don't look at the outside of a man, I look at the man's heart. And that's why David was anointed king, is because God looked at the things we don't look at. Let's look beyond the things that we normally think are important, and let's look to the heart. And then finally was reach out. And this is kind of the bridge to our discussion in small group to invite them in, is how do we actually reach out? And what happens when we reach out and they say no and it's just too awkward for them? How do we be persistent and keep on asking in a gentle and loving way so that we win the day of saying, we don't want you to be on the outside, we want you to be on the inside. We were outsiders once and now we're on the inside. There is some really great stuff in this second lesson. There's some great stuff in the second look. Make sure you check that out. But in the going deeper part, there's a great story there, actually. It's a story right out of the Bible. It's the story of Doubting Thomas. And Doubting Thomas says to his fellow disciples, I ain't going to believe that Jesus is alive until I put my finger in the holes in his hands and in his side, until I talk to him. I just can't believe you. You know what's funny is that probably most of the disciples would have said the exact same thing as Thomas said, but Thomas was the only one that wasn't there when Jesus surprised them and visited them. So Thomas gets to be the one labeled with the doubts. But Jesus' response to him is really the invitation that I want to talk with you about. Let me just read it to you out of John 20, 24 to 28. I'm going to kind of read the last two verses of this. 8 days later, his disciples were inside again. I think this is the upper room. And Thomas was with them. And although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, Peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, Put your finger here, see my hands, and put your hands here and place it on my side. And do not disbelieve, but believe. Do you hear the invitation? Do not disbelieve, but believe. Join me. Come be a part of us. Be a part of the life that I have for you. It's the same invitation that he makes to the woman at the well. And Thomas answers him and says, My Lord and my God. Thomas then knew in that moment that the invitation was real, that he was no longer on the outside of disbelief, but was on the inside of belief. If we are on the inside of belief, this is not to be something that we hold up as a proud thing, like, I'm a Christian and you're not, so ha ha ha. We want our students to understand that God made this offer to us, this invitation to us, and now we, in humility and love, must make this invitation to others. We must begin to invite them in. It might be a really cool thing to practice invitations with your students. What does an invitation look like? What are some of the things that you can do to be proactive in inviting people in? Listen, we got to be honest. Our students have not been inviting people in for very long. They haven't even been interested in it. And I think we need to help them understand what it means to invite other people in. It could be a fun thing that you talk about and actually practice. This is a really important session in Outcast. And I think that if our students can get this mindset that they, for the rest of their lives as disciples of Christ, are to be inviting people. And let the Holy Spirit do the work if they come or not. But they are to be the ones inviting. Let's challenge our students to be great at the invitation. Do you want water that'll last forever and you'll never be thirsty if you drink it? Or do you want to believe? Because if you believe, you will come from the outside and be in. You'll be on the inside with Jesus. It's a great place to be. Let's invite people in. Thanks for watching. I hope this session goes really well, and I'll be back with some more tips soon. Thanks.